Joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah, former governor of Massachusetts and the Republican nominee for president in 2012, Mitt Romney. Good to have you back on the show this morning.
Thanks, Mika. Good to be with you guys.
Joe was surmising earlier.
Yeah, I was surmising, you know.
He thinks there's still time.
I think there's time. I went out there last year and said you got to start a draft Mitt movement. You got 20 people in the race now, no clear front runner. I think the time is now, Governor. What say you?
Sorry about that, Joe. I'm counting for about you getting in the race. I think that's a better shot.
No, that's not going to happen. But it is, though. How do you tell people that have supported you so long and are looking for leadership, trying to figure out who to support moving forward? Where do you tell them which direction to go when so many of them want you in there?
Well, those that want me in there are great friends and loyalists, but I think a lot of people have to agree with the conclusion I reached, which is if we're going to win in November of 16, our best shot is if we have someone who represents a new face, a new generation of political leaders, whether it's Jeb Bush or Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, Scott Walker, and John Kasich, and Carly Fiorina, and on and on. We got a lot of very good people that are looking at this race, and people want to take a look at them. And frankly, I think people are impressed with what they see.
Any major standouts at this point? Did you pare it down to that group?
Well, that's among those. I mean, I could go on with a longer list, but I think at this stage you have to be very impressed with the pre-campaign work which Jeb Bush has carried out. I mean, he has put together a first-rate organization, and he's raised a lot of money. And I'm sorry, the truth is that to run a campaign these days, you have to have the funds to get you from state to state and to run advertising and to get your message out. And I think he's done that better than anybody else. There are others, however, that have done a great job activating supporters around them. I think you've seen some great speeches and rallies from Marco Rubio and from Scott Walker, and that list will probably grow as time goes on.
Well, I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on Hillary Clinton's sort of secondary rollout over the weekend and the messages that she sent to her audience.
Well, I thought the text touched the various places she needs to touch to try and keep her base intact. Somehow, though, when you see her on a stage or when she comes into a room full of people, she's smiling with her mouth, but her eyes are saying, where's my latte? It just doesn't suggest that she believes everything she's saying. And I was afraid as I watched that speech, it just, in some respects, perhaps it was that it's so different than what she said in the past that I was finding it a bit jarring. But, I'm sure she'll become more effective as time goes on. But at this stage, what does she really believe? I think people wonder, can they really trust Hillary Clinton?
John Heilman.
Governor, you just had David Axelrod, among many other speakers, out of your E2 summit. I believe David was the only Democrat who spoke to you and talked to you about what Republicans need to do to win back the White House. What did you learn from David Axelrod that you agreed with over the weekend?
Well, most of what he said about what things we need to do, I think, was very helpful. I mean, I think the focus of what he said was, look at the demographics. The Republican Party needs to do a better job reaching out to minorities. Hispanic Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, and so forth. And I think he's absolutely right. I think we have to make sure that when we're talking about business and helping business, that we are able to communicate that this is not because we're so concerned about the business leaders or owners. We're concerned about people that want jobs. You see, we understand that starting new businesses is the only way that people are going to get better jobs and rising incomes. Hillary Clinton famously said that businesses don't create jobs. I mean, if they don't create jobs, who the heck does? So we understand what it takes to actually help the very people she's talking about. And I think what David Axelrod was saying is, you got to make sure that people understand you're all about helping middle-class people have a brighter future and helping poor people get out of poverty. And we are.
Mike?
Her eyes are saying, "Where's my latte?" Pretty good, Governor. That was pretty good.
Ouch.
But let me ask you, I'm sure that only you and Ann know how many mornings you wake up and say to yourselves, "Damn it, I was right." But what we want to know here, what a lot of people want to know, what would your advice be to any of the GOP candidates running for president about what to do about Syria and specifically combating the growth of ISIS?
Well, I think we have to begin by saying what's our strategy going to be, and we don't have one yet, as the president admitted. In my own view, you divide strategy into two parts. Part one is to isolate and keep ISIS from growing. Part two is to defeat it and destroy it. So with regards to part one, there are a number of things I think that have to be part of the strategy. First, you have to make sure that Baghdad and the capital city of what we call Kurdistan do not fall under any circumstances. So you make sure that there are sufficient resources there to keep that from happening. Secondly, you have to pick a city that ISIS has taken, a symbolic city, and win it back. So this narrative they have that's drawing people to them from around the world, that narrative gets interrupted. Number three, you have to fight this battle a bit like a guerrilla battle or a very selective battle, which is that you hit them with airstrikes that have been carefully targeted. You also go in with night raids. You disrupt them in many of the ways that they've been disrupting the other side. And then also, we have to begin combating things with a social media and propaganda front, which is letting people know the truth about ISIS and get that across the world. ISIS can be defeated, but it needs a strategy like the one I'm describing, and that's just the beginning of a strategy to make sure that we understand where we're going, how we're going to get there, and we have to provide the resources, whatever they might be, that are necessary to protect those cities that are so key to the future.
I just wonder, looking back at, I think we talked about it, even your car elevator and your fortune, and I wonder if you look at all with any sympathy at the scrutiny the Clintons are getting for the way they have made money over the years.
Well, what was sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, which is I got beaten up on that sort of stuff, and I think Hillary Clinton has to expect the same treatment. Look, Hillary Clinton is somebody who talks about how much money some people are making and how much less other people are making. But look at how much money she's been making. How could she get out there and sell a populist message when she makes in 1 hour a multiple of what the average American will make in a year? I mean, this is something which she's going to have a hard time doing. I understand the challenge that she's going to have, but I think making populism the centerpiece of her campaign makes her particularly vulnerable to this kind of response.
All right, Mitt Romney, very good to see you. Joe still wants you to run. Just
Thanks,
jump
Joe.
in,
You're the
says.
best.
One of these days, one of these days. All right. Thank you so much.
Up next.
Thank you.
Well, he's going to be a busy man on
Yes.
television. William Shatner is going to join us to talk about the not one, but 2 new series that he's involved with. He's ahead on Morning Joe.